The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Listen in as your host, Casey Colburn, brings together a perfectly picked panel of guests to discuss hot topics and events within the metaphysical and paranormal field. But don't worry, should the discussions get too heated, our studio's witch will sound her cackle to simmer the cauldron back down. Listen for new episodes of Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. only on Paranormal Buzz Radio. This is Season 1, Episode 9, and we're talking about haunted objects. I'm your host, Casey Colburn, and today we welcome to our circle Brian Cano, Alonnie Milligan, and Heather Mattison. Welcome to Cauldron Talk, guys. How are we all doing?
Good.
How are you?
Good to be back.
Before we begin, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, a little bit about me. My name is Brian J. Cano. I've been investigating the paranormal for the past 18 years. Some of you might know me from Haunted Collector, or perhaps even Scared, but most recently, Paranormal Caught on Camera on the Travel Channel. And I like to consider myself as a skeptical believer, which means I know the phenomenon exists, I've experienced it, I've seen it, I know it's out there. It's the people who report it that I'm skeptical. How about you guys?
Well, I'm Alonnie. I've been a psychic medium for over 50 years and out playing in the public since 92. I agree with the skeptical believer. I am definitely on that side of being a skeptical believer. And I like that part of it. It keeps me on my toes.
Okay, my name is Heather Mattison. My husband Robert Mattison and I own Greystone Manor. It's a B&B in Gasport, New York. It's been known to have a lot of spiritual activity, and we've had a lot of paranormal groups here. I've captured lots of things, digging into that as far as the house and the history goes, trying to figure out what's going on here and why we have activity. And I'm also a psychic medium, and I do readings here. I have my office here, so I think the combination of the two things stirs some things up. And I also agree with the skeptical believer thing too, because even though I know what I pick up here as a psychic, I like to have other people come in and try and see what they're picking up, and then I like using the equipment to sort of validate some of the things that we are picking up and hear here and see.
So today we're here to discuss haunted objects, and some of my questions for you today are, what is a haunted object, and how does an object become haunted?
It's a good question. When it comes to haunted objects, I usually place them in one of two categories, general categories. The first one being that the object itself has energy on it that either is attracting a spirit, is part of a spirit. There's something inherent about the object itself that is causing the activity in a home. Now, on Haunted Collector, we dealt with a lot of those types of objects where, you know, it could be, and I don't want to say easily because the show made it look easy, but it was not easy in trying to identify one object in a house or a business as being the culprit for paranormal activity. But the second category is a lot harder to pin down, and that's when the object itself acts as a catalyst for pre-existing energy in a house. And by catalyst, I mean that in the house, you might have dormant energy that really hasn't been stirred up. It's there, but it's not making itself known. And you bring in an object either from an estate sale, somebody died, or maybe just from the mall. It doesn't necessarily have to be an old object, but it has a certain energy about it that clashes with the existing energy. And this is borne out in science as far as catalysts go. Say you take a room, you fill half of it with oxygen atoms, half of it with hydrogen atoms. Over time, those atoms will interact and bond and form more complex atoms, and in this case, water, H2O. But it takes some time. It will take however long it takes for that process to happen. But if you bring in another element that acts as a catalyst, like say a piece of platinum, boom, you're going to have a reaction. That piece is going to cause that interaction to happen more rapidly. There's going to be an output of energy, and then you will have a room full of water. Now, the object in this example is like that piece of platinum. It's clashing with whatever is there. So maybe if you had dormant or even positive energy in the house, bringing in this object that is just not reacting well with it can sometimes cause a reaction that may seem negative or may seem will disturb that energy. So it's not so much that the object itself is haunted, it's just causing that appearance. And trying to get to the bottom of which of the two categories it is always the challenge for the investigator.
I always have a mixed opinion on calling something haunted because it has an energy attached to it. You know, maybe it was imbued with something that was on purpose, very, very nicely. If I have an amulet and and put some energy into it and put some reasoning behind what I'm doing into it, and then it ends up at an estate sale, doesn't mean it's haunted in the sense of a negative. And I think we get caught in that trap of calling something haunted. I agree what you were just saying, Brian, that it can have that double-sided issue with things. I like arguing both sides of this topic because I'm skeptical, and because some of the things you can look at and feel and touch and go, oh yeah, there's something here, there's something going on with this. But the moniker of haunted doesn't always settle with me.
Right. I think there's a lot of residual that happens too. I think it depends on what the item is. If it's something that's really something very special to someone, if it's an item that they wore all the time, like a piece of jewelry or something that's really close to them, I think it sort of will contain your energy to a point. You know, I think as far as feeling something from an item, where you pick something up and feel it as a psychic, you know, that's how I sort of pick up energy on things. But as someone who collects antiques, and I literally live in a big antique, so it's strange bringing items into the house because we're putting it back to how it's supposed to look, so we're bringing in lots of antique, everything from portraits and paintings to furnishings and even linens and things like that. So we're bringing in lots of soft items that contain a lot of energy too. So you never know. I don't know how much of it is that, if it's just something sort of attached to an item because it was close to someone. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good point regarding the moniker of haunted on things, because it's like, all right, you could say there's a house that's haunted. It doesn't necessarily mean that every brick, every beam of wood, every part of it is infused with an energy. There's just an energy present in the location. So, yeah, to say that an object is haunted is kind of difficult, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it is imbued with this energy and can never be separated, can never be taken care of or settled down. And I personally, a lot of people ask me about haunted objects and they assume that I collect. I don't. That's the old man. That's Zaphis. I do my best to stay away from things that are going to cause trouble in my home, whether they're dormant or otherwise.
Well, in our house, since we moved in, we've had a lot of people, friends and family, and people have said, you know, I don't like this item. It's creepy. I'm going to bring it to you and put it in your house. Like they'll donate things to the house. It's really funny. And we're like, well, why don't you like it? What's wrong? They're like, I don't know. I get a weird feeling from it. So they've brought a lot of stuff to the house here that just random people, just friends, people visited. It's pretty funny. So that always makes you wonder, why are so many people getting that reaction? They're not related to each other. It's just all at different times. Like, I don't like this chair, or I don't like this picture. You know, I feel like it's looking at me, so I'm going to bring it to your house. So we laugh and we're like, okay, but still makes you look at it twice. Like, okay, that's interesting.
Does that bring a hodgepodge tornado effect of energy into the house? Because there are so many different things that could be or could not be attached to something or with something that all of a sudden is now landed in your house. It's like a magnet trying to, you know, attract itself and repel itself at the same time. Mm-hmm. I would think that would cause certainly some thinking twice about the energy in there. for you as a person that lives there, how it can affect your health, how's it going to affect your sleep, what's going on with things. That's, when people just say to you, hey, I want to bring this over to you, do you just say yes, or do you say, well, tell me more?
Right. I say, well, why? Like, what is it that you don't like about it? And they're like, well, they'll have some sort of background to it. Either it was like my grandmother's, but I never really liked it. Doesn't fit with my style, my decorating style, but I also sort of gives me the creeps. I'm like, well, why does it give you the creeps? And then we'll have them bring it by. I'm just sort of curious to see what I get from it. We've also had people bring a couple paintings. It's hard to describe just because the energy is so changeable in here anyway. I think they were saying before, there's a portal here where you do have a lot of changing energies anyway. So we do get a lot of coming and going, and there are Native American burial grounds on the property, so we have a lot of burial sites here. So it's sort of strange. We have a lot of different things going on here. So I don't know if it's a mix of all of that, things coming into the house, but then we've had paintings fall off the walls by themselves too, that people have brought over. But then I found out one of the original owners, I have her will from the 1800s, and she was an art collector. So then we just laugh because we're like, well, maybe she doesn't like our artwork too. Or whatever these people are bringing into the house. But then I'll smudge, I'll sort of bless, and I'll explain to the spirits here, like, this is what's going on, and, sort of ask their permission. Things move in the house by themselves that, we can't really explain. I have a timeout cabinet, basically, where I put things when they do move.
I love that. Great.
Because they're misbehaving. Because we had clown dolls, and there's the kids' room. People bring us lots of dolls. And there's like a kids' clown room. It's just one of the rooms upstairs, and one of the clowns, we had two of them sitting next to each other, and I would come home, and the one would be on the floor all the time. So we kept joking that the other one was pushing it off of the shelf. Cats couldn't get to it, you couldn't reach it. It would just be on the ground. So, yeah.
My next question for you guys is, how can you tell the difference between an actually haunted object and one that has residual energy and one that is just ordinary? I find a lot of the times people get hyped up and they scare themselves because they talk themselves into a story about an object, and it starts to creep them out, and it kind of just turns into more than what it actually is. So what are some of the ways that you can tell the differences between these objects?
Wow. Anytime that I've been on an investigation that involves a potential haunted object, I gotta say, just the way that I investigate, making sure that I have my three pillars with me, that's psychic, skeptic, psychic. I feel like I need all those things involved to try to identify if it is just a regular object that has the appearance of being haunted, or if it is something that's legit being caused by an object. Because for me, as much as I love my devices and my gadgets and my gear, all it could say is beep, 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 beep. And there's not much more I can get from that, so I can get some data. I'd have to turn to the psychic I'm working with and say, hey, well, I'm getting a reading off of this. What's your take? What are you feeling from this? Is this something that's connected to something that's intelligent, that has an affinity for or an attachment to this? Or is this just a residual energy that is causing it? And that can be difficult because unless there's a spirit that says, this is mine, I don't want you messing with it, and the explanation is never simple, we kind of have to do the guessing game. And sometimes it involves taking the suspected item out of the house, maybe putting it in a garage or a barn or outside for a couple of days to see if things die down. And if they don't, all right, we got it wrong. Time to go back and restart from the beginning again. And at least for me, because I'm not psychically inclined to have that focus, to have that pinpoint accuracy, I can get maybe within the same room and say, all right, there's something going on here, but I really do need, and that's where I really value psychics and their insights on an investigation, because they can get me closer.
I agree with having the sensitive person and the skeptical person all part of the mix because it helps keep it balanced. I think it's very important. Depending on what I'm doing, if someone's calling me to the house, I'll ask them not to tell me anything, first of all, about the house, what's going on with it, or about any of the objects, because I want to go in myself and see what is glowing to me, what's pulsating to me, what's talking to me, what's going on with things. And then I will talk to the person and say, okay, I saw an issue with this or this, and see if that matches with what they've got going on. Because it's just not a hard science. You can't really say, okay, here's that cookie jar that was, found in the attic and we kept it. And so there's no history too much to it that they know of, or, was it made in China? Was it made, is there a curse on it from Romania? Who knows this stuff? And so it's pretty tough to just say, yes, that's haunted. No, it's not haunted. It's that feeling. It's that gut reaction and that sensation that comes with it. If I go into an antique store, it's I turn the volume down enough because I want to just look at the stuff first. I want to enjoy myself and look at the pretty pieces and then turn the volume up, so to speak, and see if anything's talking. And
I think, too, when it comes to haunted objects, I think a lot of it is the story behind it. So if you're buying something and someone's telling you, oh, this is cursed, and everyone who touches it gets sick after they're with it, or, it's sort of, your mind is very powerful, very, very susceptible to suggestion. So when it comes to like witchcraft, Santeria, anything like that, half of the spell casting and curses and things like that it's mental. So if you're telling somebody, I put a curse on you, you're gonna die in 3 months, or you're gonna become very sick, or whatever this is, you're all of a sudden your mind starts playing games with you, like, oh my God, I don't feel well. Oh no, I have a chill. I think I'm getting sick. I think that curse is working. So a lot of it is that too. I think a lot of it is just the power of suggestion when it comes to haunted objects. Mm-hmm. Some things I think definitely do have issues. They do have attachments. Something like a teddy bear is something that someone had that was very close to them that they kept all the time with them. But, I think a lot of that is depending on the story they're telling you. You know what I mean? Because you don't know the background unless you can really go back to day one, find out, like you said, if it's made in China or wherever this thing is from, whatever the attachment is or the story is, if you can validate it. It's like the telephone game. You don't know if you're ever going to get the true story of anything either.
True. Well,
also, I think when it comes to objects, and maybe you ladies can shed some light on this, I feel like this is true with hauntings that have nothing to do with items. I've always maintained that the observation of that which we consider a haunting doesn't necessarily always have to come from deceased human spirits. Like, I feel like residual energy, we're putting out echoes and energy all the time. We're leaving dead skin cells. We're leaving hair. We're leaving bits of ourselves behind, and over and over and over again over time, through routine, through emotion, especially strong ones. I feel like we can almost manifest our own spirits in the respect that, okay, more often than not, when we get called in or we get contacted about activity at a place, the homeowner isn't sitting in their basement with a K2 meter going, oh, wonder who's going to talk to me. Mm-hmm. They're going about their everyday business. They're washing dishes, they're folding laundry, and out of the corner of their eye, they see something, a shadow. They turn and it's gone. They feel a presence. And it's not something they can necessarily communicate with all the time. And I feel like some of that residual can be us, echoes of ourselves. And, you mentioned like teddy bears and things like that. Like, as a kid, who didn't have a stuffed animal that you loved so intently that your energy got on it? Now, who's to say that all right, when that teddy bear goes to the next family, goes to Goodwill, goes to wherever it ends up, doesn't have that energy from a still living person on it? I mean, does this make sense, or am I in the weeds?
No, I get that. That totally makes sense. I get what you're saying for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Does it hold water? Like, okay, someone gets called in and an object has energy on it, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it just came from Goodwill. Like, I recently dropped off a whole bunch of stuffed animals to Goodwill, and I'm like, oh, I kind of was sentimental. I'm like, oh, hey, I hate to be giving these guys up, but all right, they're going to go to good homes, kids are going to love them, and that'll be that. So who knows, my energy's still on it, when it goes to wherever it goes, maybe somebody sensitive over there might pick up on something do you think that's possible, that it doesn't necessarily have to be from the other side?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I was saying before. When I give my family magical items, or, people that I work with and give them a magical item, it's given with that intent and that love, and it's got all that goodness set into it, and it's going to go to that person. And if they're sensitive, they might pick up on it, or they might just, have it, use it, and just feel good about it.
Well, that as a Reiki practitioner also, because that's what you can do. You can Reiki, you can infuse things too. So again, when you're giving gifts, where you're putting your own energy in there, you're putting your own, like you said, when you give gifts to people with good intentions, and it's like, I picked this out for you, putting my Reiki energy into it. Here, I'm giving this to you. As like a, for love and for happiness to give this to you. So yeah, you can definitely do it as a living person. Infuse it with your own Reiki energy.
And you can also take it back as well. I know when I gift items to Goodwill, and when I take them to the Salvation Army and such, I do that. Okay, thank you for your service to me, and now I let you go. I'm taking back my piece of my puzzle to it. So I've taken back whatever energy I had in that glassware and whatever, and tchotchkes and whatever. And so I sent it out clean. Right? Mm-hmm.
Most people don't do that, though.
No,
most people just cold-heartedly dump things off. It's like, oh, Grandma died. I'm going to take all this stuff and just pitch it. But it could have been her favorite thing ever. So it's sort of...
And that's
but then again, once you're dead, you're not really attached to all your stuff. You sort of cut ties with everything, but you never know. Some things may still be super special. I don't know.
It's interesting when I have a client and they come and they bring me, I ask them if they want to bring me an object or a picture, face down. I don't want to see the face. You don't want to see the picture. Put the object in my hand and everything. And you can get those impressions from it. And it's kind of like that Memorex thing, their memories are put into that pocket watch that was Grandpa's. And then you can kind of get an essence of Grandpa and what was going on, or that might even be a trigger for him to come back in and see me. Say, okay, that was my watch, and here's what I remember, and here's what's going on with it. So it doesn't make it haunted that respect. It can just be a fulcrum.
Yes.
Right, when I do seances, I do that too. I do old school, where I'll have the 3 white candles, put an object in the middle of the candles, and then when I'm doing a seance, we'll ask questions. I'll have everybody bring car keys, whatever was important to that person, a photo of the person, whoever they're trying to contact with. But then I also like to use modern equipment too in the seance. So I have like K2s and things on the table, and then as I'm getting information, things start to light up. It's sort of interesting because I'll ask them to step forward, and then I'll put modern equipment on the table too. So it's sort of neat to have a combination of the two things. I start getting answers, and then we start getting hits on all the equipment. I'll put a, recorder out too, see if we get any response that way.
I like to use I call it the blinky thing, because technical names, right, the blinky thing. And sometimes it's nice for a client to just look at the blinky thing and see it blinking instead of me looking at them, right? It can unnerve them sometimes. And so they're just looking at the little blinky thing and they're going, oh, okay, good, this is good. And so if it helps, it helps. I'm a big fan of whatever gets the job done.
Mm-hmm. That sort of thing happens all the time. And, if you give a kid a stuffed animal or a necklace or something and say, this is going to help you with the monsters at night, it feels safe, it helps, and it's just something that's very ordinary. But with that regard, it's, to me, the energy that gets attached to that object isn't necessarily the person's that's giving it to the child, but rather the child's energy. Because now they're like, yes, this is my security, this is my safety, and that's what that becomes. And it's kind of an interesting thing. So, my next question for you guys. Is it dangerous to own a haunted object, and what are some of the precautions that should be taken for keeping one?
This is a question I get asked a lot. It's a good one. I don't necessarily think it's dangerous to own a haunted object, but I put it in the same category as, say, having a weapon in the house. Owning it is not what's dangerous, although I feel like there is a definite subculture these days where you can go online, you can go on eBay, and the sale and purchase of quote-unquote haunted objects is a thing. And I imagine a good 80% of them aren't haunted at all. They're just people looking to make a quick buck and, let the buyer beware. So if you do have a legit haunted object, I think it really goes back to intent and what it is that you intend to do with it. Why are you collecting these things? Like, for instance, John has them all in the museum. They're blessed, they're bound, and he does it because he wants to educate people that a haunted object could be anything. It could be the most innocent-looking item, or it could be the most garish, horrendous-looking statue, and it really runs the gamut. So on my show recently, Paranormal Caught on Camera, there was a video of a paranormal team that acquired a box that was sealed with candle wax. And as the producers interviewing me, they say, "Oh, are they in any danger? What are they doing? What's going on?" And I'm thinking, well, if it's sealed, and we're going to assume that it's legit. If it's sealed, it was done so for a reason. So you should probably just let it be. I know I would let it be. I wouldn't mess with it. So precautions that you can take with haunted objects. I mean, if you insist upon having them and displaying them, I guess it really depends. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have them in a place where people could touch them. I would definitely say, don't touch, no touching. And going back to John and his museum, most of the things in there are blessed and bound. So, they even though they still have a charge, even though there's still energy attached to them, it's dormant. So, does that really deny it being haunted? I mean, if you're going to go and you can look at something, whether it's haunted or not, you may or may not feel it, but if it's not making the house levitate or things fly off shelves, then what is it that you have this for? I guess it really comes down to your intent. Like, well, why are you collecting these things?
That's very true. People tend to follow fads and things that are going to make them excited. It was pirates for a while, then little witches and Vikings and haunted dolls and clowns and et cetera, et cetera. And so divot boxes, right? So you can go on YouTube and you can find, 85 zillion divot boxes that they're just covered in red wax and people want to feel that they can play with the unknown and it's going to be fine. And so they want to open it and they find some rotten eggs and, maybe a, gotcha sign, that kind of thing. But if you have something that's truly unusual, that's got an energy attached to it, or you feel, or you have been able to prove, or you can have substantial proof that it is, I agree. Why would you want to take it out and wave it about? What is your intention for all your buddies? For them to get a good scare, or for that thing to jump onto them? So it's a lot of people playing with matches sometimes, and other times just buyer beware. We just want to have a good time, so we're just going to do this because I'm going to get 20 minutes of fame on YouTube. And so what do you do with that stuff once you have it? Well, I agree. If there's reasonable reason to believe that there is something going on with that object, put it somewhere and turn it down, bless it, bind it, put it somewhere else. If your intention is to hold on to this thing, you better understand what you bring out, you better be able to put back. And I think a lot of these folks don't know how to put things back. And so they're just opening doors that they should not be opening.
I mean, do you think the haunted items are because they created them to be haunted? I mean, do you think they're just picking them up at an antique store and bringing them home and they're haunted? Or do you think the people are causing the hauntings? Like, people have attachments. Sometimes those attachments will attach to an item that you own in your house, whatever. So that's always tricky, too, because I never know if it's the person. Like, then do they give, like, for me, if they bring me, like, a painting they don't like, then do they go home and something else gets, becomes attached or haunted? We don't know, I don't know if it's the person or if it's the item.
Well, that's where it comes back to category one, that if they're giving it to you in the hopes that they'll get rid of their haunting because that energy is focused in some way on that particular item, it will travel with the item. If it's in their home, obviously, and they can give you everything in their house, they're still going to have activity.
Exactly.
When it comes to these boxes, like, you're right, it's trying to get that 15 minutes of fame, and unfortunately the danger behind it, because they're ignorant of the consequences of what that will do. They're like, hey guys, I'm brave, I'm going to do this, I'm going to open up, hey look, nothing happened to me. Mm-hmm. It might not be apparent right then and there, and it's kind of a long game when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm. It's a lovely thing that this field that we're so interested in is becoming more mainstream and more people are understanding it. It's also that double-edged sword that they don't understand it.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions. And I feel like I say this over and over. And Casey, you've seen I've been posting videos from this old documentary that I never finished. It was called The Social Doc. And back in like 2006, 2007, my buddy Chris Mancuso and I, we decided to do a documentary that wasn't about a location, it wasn't about a house, it wasn't about a team. We figured we'd turn the camera 180 degrees and look at the community. Why is this such a fascinating thing? Why is everyone so enamored with this hobby? We're all crawling in the dark looking for answers. And I conducted a lot of interviews with famous people, regular people, the full gamut of personalities involved in the paranormal. And I've been posting them recently, and the information is still so the same that it feels like I could have shot these interviews last month. Like, so little has changed as far as development and understanding. And we say the words, we like to think we understand them. I feel we're really still very far away from a level of understanding where we can stand on solid footing and take the next step and move forward. I feel like the wheels have just been spinning in the mud. And even though more people, I think, have access to and are aware of what we do, I think that's just more people also spinning their wheels. And I would love to see us get a little traction.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think people are fascinated with the paranormal because it sort of gives them validation that there is something after you die, that you don't just die and disappear. And because people have moved away from traditional churches and spiritualism is sort of taking over, where people don't go to church every day, but still to get spiritual answers, that they still want to believe there's something out there. So when you have paranormal shows where they're saying, hey, look at, we're talking to this person who's invisible, obviously they crossed over into some other dimension, it gives them hope. Because people don't want to think that when they die, there's nothing, that you don't go anywhere. So I think, in a small answer, I think that's one part of it. I think that's why people are sort of fascinated with it.
Oh, it's not the why are we fascinated, but why are we not moving forward? I mean, we can look back to the mid-1800s with the Fox sisters and the spiritualist movement, and so many of those figures were actually found out to be frauds and fakes, and yet that did nothing to dissuade the movements. And I feel like we're in that right now. And not that there's fakes and frauds, but the TV shows have now taken over and said, hey, everybody look at this. But there's been no advancement. There's been no forward motion of, okay, well, 15 years ago when Ghost Hunters came out, we didn't understand everything, but now we have a little bit more. We don't even have a little bit more. We have new gadgets with more lights and more people saying the words. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we just have to get to a critical mass of people who are ready to understand and ready to accept it. Because I know for me, I might be a skeptical believer now, but I started out as a skeptic and I didn't believe in anything, any of this. So like the stages of loss, I went through disbelief and anger and bargaining until I came to acceptance. And I think our society as a whole is still somewhere in the middle of that. They haven't accepted it, and it's being presented as entertainment, but we still don't have any firm footing as far as moving forward with concrete answers.
And as a society, and we have taken things, and we'll look at early caveman, right? And so they're developing fire, and then they're all of a sudden developing. We're following, we're going to shake some corn at the moon, and we're going to follow the cycles. And then we have our holy person, our medicine person, and they have a staff. And so that staff has been imbibed with whatever from their time to make it enriched, right? And so it's been handed down, and then, 1,000 years later, there it is behind glass because it's still believed to either have that kind of residual energy or because the people believed it for 1,000 years of holding this, that now it does. And so then there it sits. What do you do with it? Would I sell it on eBay? Oh my God, no. But I would still want to be able to do things with it, right? I'd want to be able to touch it myself. I'd want to be able to see if they could do testing with it because science can do some things. So I believe that we can make things manifest over time, giving it enough time.
I feel like there was a turning point, like maybe it was the Industrial Revolution where, you brought it up, like our ancestors seemed to be very in touch with what was going on. It seemed like they had the answers in a very cosmic way that we've lost today, has been replaced with skepticism because we've had no reason to accept or believe or understand. So I wonder if there were, where the turning point was, where society could have gone in a different direction and we could have still had that stuff this entire time and been a little further down the road.
It was the Eisenhower Era, and mental illness came into play. And so if you were a psychic and you were saying you're hearing voices and talking to invisible people, they'd lock you up. Mm-hmm. Or they do electroshock therapy on you. So there was they put the kibosh on all that. 40s, 50s were huge they just clamped down on anything like that. So that's where a lot of it got lost. And then people who were practicing psychics or doing anything like that, it sort of lost favor because it was seen as, craziness, and they became very, very strict during that era. But now the generation has passed. Now those people are all sort of dying off, and this generation now is sort of funny because now they all want answers. They want to know what's going on, what's out there. Now we're curious, but we're looking at it as in a scientific angle, where it's like, well, maybe the psychic person really is hearing something, but then we're getting validation for what we're picking up in messages, by people doing research and finding historical facts on it, or with equipment. You're getting answers or EVPs or whatever, however you want to word it. But that was a big part of why everything went dark. Mm-hmm. The 50s were a bad time for a psychic, to be a psychic. Mm-hmm. But then, like, my grandmother was huge into that. They're all English, and they read tea leaves, and they were all psychics, and they were very superstitious, and they did all sorts of stuff. But then my mother didn't want any part of that. But it was like the generation before them. So people all born 1900, they were all into it still. Mm-hmm.
I went into one of the historical societies that we have close to where I live. The ex-husband had made some benches that were donated to them. They wanted some there. And I walked in, I'm thinking, I'm going to get a lot of vibes out of this place. And because it was pretty mild, right? Until I got to these items that were a collection of, during the 1800s, when you would make a memorial for somebody, you would use locks of their hair, right?
Oh, right.
So they make art. And I got thinking about that as whoever is making it, let's say it's a circle of women who are making this memorial for their grandmother. And so they're probably talking about her while they're making this memorial picture with her hair, and maybe some stories are told, or her favorite recipes and all these things. And for me, voice is the power right there. So they're putting it all into that piece. And then that piece is now a tribute. Well, how many 100 years later you see it on a wall and it still glows. That's, to me, a miracle almost. It's like this is the living tradition right here of this person. So I wouldn't call it a haunted object. I would say it was a blessed memorial.
Well, it comes into science, again, comes into play where how much does your DNA hold? So your physical body, your physical pieces of you. When my sister passed away a few years ago, cleaning out her house, she had saved, like, teeth she had pulled, like, as an adult, like molars and weird stuff. And we're like, oh my God. And we just kept going through her stuff going, you know how that is. They give you your teeth in your little thing and they pull a molar. I'm like, why would you save this stuff? But then I'm like, that's so weird. It's like her piece of her, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I remember the time just thinking, this is so bizarre because you're like holding something that's, talk about a haunted object, or like you said, something that holds your energy that has your DNA, but then someone's hair, that's going to have all their DNA in there. So it has everything that you're all about, in physical form would have been in that hair.
I've had experiences on investigations with death masks, so
those are cool.
That definitely holds water, in the respect that, okay, the person wasn't even alive when this was created, and yet that contact and whatever part of them, whatever residual physically of them came onto that mask when it was molded. It's got to be something. There's got to be some connection. Because, again, how does the soul, the spirit, whatever we want to call it, how does that interact with our physical form? It's got to. I mean, we're walking vehicles that the energy is driving. So it's amazing. It's an amazing partnership.
Well, it is a ball of energy. I mean, your spirit is an energy ball. I mean, a lot of people don't believe in orbs, or don't believe in whatever you're saying, but then you'll see those electric bolts sometimes. You'll see funny things where you don't know if that's your energy or your physical, spiritual being, where it's like, where it actually has like a weight to it or a mass. And then they talk about it being, they say you drown in water, and then how water conducts electricity, where they say things like the Great Lakes, where you got lots of shipwrecks, or you have lots of deaths. Niagara Falls, I live right near there, where you have lots of deaths going over the falls. That's the suicide. So for years, I would be very anxious driving by the water going over the falls. I would have to drive that way from my route home, and it would make me really panicky and nervous until I found out after a couple of years, it dawned on me like, oh my gosh, all the shipwrecks and all the suicides here. That's probably what I was picking up, because I kept getting this weird, but it stays in the water. It's like a tangible thing that electricity stays in the water. So it makes you wonder, how much does your spirit energy, your actual electrical energy stays in items too? Because it is a force, it's a thing. It makes you wonder.
There are folks that their intention is to get items like James Dean's Porsche, right? The Spyder Porsche that he died in, and that no one's been able to find it. It was auctioned, and now it's just off the grid. And some people want things for those very reasons, either have a piece of memorabilia or because maybe they want something a little bit more. It's like owning, it's like owning, Bonnie and Clyde's car. I'd be certainly interested. Things like that I want to touch. I just want to feel it. It's going to tell me a lot. I just want to see it. I want to feel it. But what I want. Go ahead.
Right. I have a trunk that I bought. Kay, you know this, right? Did you see the trunk that was in the green bedroom from Auschwitz that we have? Yep. We bought it by accident at a yard sale, and then found out later that it was this couple who were in Auschwitz together. This is what they brought with them from Auschwitz. They brought other stuff and moved to the United States after they were freed. And then all this tragic history with this couple. They had 2 kids, and the daughter ended up killing the mom, and then the husband passed away, and then the son ended up inheriting all the money from the people all dying, and then he died of a drug overdose. He went partying and died of a drug overdose. So this trunk was in the possession of a friend of this guy, the guy who died of the drug overdose. He was storing it for this guy because they were cleaning up the parents' house because they had all just died. So it was just all this crazy history, murder, suicide, Nazis, all this stuff. But when the guy died of the drug overdose and his friend had it in his garage, he didn't want to touch it. He didn't want it. He didn't want to have it near him. He's like, I want this out of here. He was trying to sell it at the yard sale. I bought it from his wife. We had already bought it because it's from the 1800s. It's old. And we were loading it on the truck, and then the wife, she was telling us, oh, there's some history to it. And sure enough, we looked up the names of the people attached to it and what was going on, and it all checked out. It's really from them. Then we were like, we didn't know what to do with it. We're like, should we bring it home? I don't know if I want to bring all that that's an insane amount of weird energy attached to this thing. Personal belongings of these people with all this tragedy, So we did bring it home, but that we had some really bizarre reactions to. We had spirit box sessions in front of it, and we did some testing on it just to see. I wanted to see, I smudged it and blessed it and everything, but still, we get lots of bizarre K2 hits, and if you put it anywhere near it, it lights up like a Christmas tree. So we don't know what's going on with this thing.
And it's so crazy because who knows, are they going to attach to Grandma's favorite teacup or maybe Grandpa's favorite wrench? You just don't know how this stuff works. And so to have that kind of reaction with the trunk is pretty amazing.
So I'm going to put these 2 questions together. So why is owning haunted objects becoming kind of a trend now? And are there any pros and cons? Like, I guess kind of in your opinion, are there pros and cons of owning a haunted object?
Well, I think it's becoming a trend because it's something that is, I don't want to say taboo, but it's in the forefront of people's consciousness right now. Just like back in the day, it was considered, I don't have a good word for it, but people would go on safaris and they would go on hunts and they would bring back trophies of animal heads and bodies, and today it's frowned upon, and rightfully so, but it's that same mentality that, okay, I'm going to toil with something that is potentially dangerous, that could potentially kill me, and my ownership of it shows that I have a level of control, or I've mastered this, or I came out unscathed. Here's a trophy. This is a trophy for me. And the more I have, I can display them and say, look, everyone, look at my mastery of the unknown. And while sometimes it can be for something that's a lot more mundane, like, oh, I just thought it was interesting, or I like Ouija boards, or I like whatever it is they collect. I think today, because of the shows and because of our general exposure to the paranormal in the public, it doesn't have the same stigma it did 50 years ago. Back then, the paranormal wasn't the paranormal. You weren't a rock star if you weren't it. It was the occult. It was secretive knowledge. It was things you didn't really talk about in public. And if you did, you were looked at strangely, or maybe you too were sent to an asylum. And these days, you can be out in such a way. You can be loud and proud and say, hey, guys, I believe. Oh, and by the way, I have a collection of haunted dolls. I'm scared to sleep at night. And I think the pros and cons go back to the person who is doing the collecting. I mean, it's I don't think there's inherently anything bad about collecting. You just have to be careful. And this is not like collecting figurines or collecting comics or collecting something that doesn't have unseen consequences. So, again, it goes back to let the buyer beware.
Well said. Well said. When I think back to when I was young and the odd person, right, and the kids are, don't, she's weird and she's talking to dead people and talking stuff and all that things. And now today they're calling me saying, hey, I picked up this piece and I'm a little nervous about it. Why do you want it? And what are you going to do with it? And what do you hope to gain from this? And what do you want me to do with it? And I mean, there's always that give and take of exchange there, that knowledge. What do you want to do with this thing? Is it bad to hold it onto it? I'm not going to say good or bad. What do you want to do with it? What's your intention? Your intention's a big part of this thing. If it's for educational pieces and you want to and help people to learn about this field, you're going to do all the right things to make sure that object does not hurt anyone else. So yeah, collect it, have it, do what you want to do. If it's for a thrill ride, well, there you go. There's a nice climb on that roller coaster till you get your stomach in your mouth on the way down. And, we're doing that stuff. So, oh boy, not an easy answer.
I think a lot of it does have to do with why they're buying it. What is it? I mean, do they know how to cleanse it, or do they know how to, you know what I mean? Like, once they get it, if they do think it is negative, how will they know? Do they know the difference? Like, if they are getting something negative from it, or if they're being harmed or something, are they going to know enough to protect themselves? Like, how, when we bought the trunk, we had no idea where that was from. We only knew it when we were loading it onto the truck, and then they came out and told us, oh, by the way, there's something you should know about that. We just bought it because it was a cool Victorian dressing trunk. It was really cool, neat little thing. We had no idea what the history was after we bought it, but people who are purposely buying it, knowing that it's haunted, yeah, that is a tricky question, because unless you're in the field, unless you're a psychic yourself, or if you think you're able to protect it, and even we're not 100% of, obviously, we don't know. We don't really know what's attached to it. There's trickery involved too. Spirits aren't always like up and telling you 100% what's going on. They like to goof around.
No.
All right. So my last question for you guys today is, what advice would you give to somebody who's just brought home a haunted object?
I think if we're going to assume from the question that it is verifiable and an authentic haunted object, I would say, again, be careful, be respectful. Again, it really comes back to why you brought that object home. If it's something you brought home because it was a family heirloom, it's a relic that passed to you, you might not know what to do with it. Of course, don't panic. Activity starts to boil up, then there's no need to panic just yet. If it's something you bought with the intention of starting a haunted collection, then again, be careful, be respectful, know what it is that you're doing, because it could be like playing with fire. And if you bought it by accident and have no interest in keeping it, then I know a few people you can call.
Yeah, if we're saying that it's verifiable that that object is haunted, not that someone told you it was haunted, but that there's something going on, and then you feel, okay, here's what's going on, so we think it is, and here's why I think it is, and what's going on. Certainly, why do you still want it? If you do, then here's some things you can do to help either null and void it or turn it down or protect yourself. It would really be education at that point. Here's what you can do to make sure that you're safe. And why do you want to hang on to it? You know, what's the thrill ride? And, you know, give me some more circumstances, because just because Mary said it was haunted, so she gave it to you, well, maybe she's creeped out by clowns just in general. Doesn't mean the clown is haunted, right?
True.
But the mind does really funny things. So proving it's a little more tougher than just saying it. Oh, this is such a hard question. It's individual to the situation and the person. And then you have to take it from there.
Well, I always pay attention to my animals, because animals will always alert you when there's any spirit activity going on. So if you have cats or dogs, you know, dogs will sense lower level of vibration, so they're going to see ghosts or anything that are spirits that haven't crossed over. So they'll always look low and growl. And cats will look high, and they see higher level vibration, so they're going to see spirit activity, spirits, angels, anything the higher order. So whenever I bring items in, I will literally put them in front of the cats, you know, and see if they do anything, see if they act funny. Because if it's something's got something attached to it, they're going to pick up on it. Mm-hmm. They're going to either stay away from it, they'll act funny. So I always tell people, watch your animals too. If they start to behave funny, like say you bring something in like a chair. Oh, they said this chair was haunted. See if your animals go near it, if they avoid it, they growl at it, if they act funny. Cats are going to know, because they definitely sense things, and dogs also, obviously. They're going to sense things that you can't see or hear. Because people aren't walking around with a K2 meter, normal people. But your animals will always alert you. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being on my show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Always great conversations, Casey. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. This is so much fun, you guys.
Alrighty, well, you guys have a lovely night. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Good night, all.
Thank you for joining my circle tonight. It was a pleasure to discuss this spooky topic with you. And a thank you to all my listeners for tuning in. And as always, dreadful dreams. Remember, my darlings, to always be kind to those around you, including our friends with claws, fangs, and fur. Hello, darling. Love the show and want to be more involved? All while showing your support? Have I got the perfect thing for you? Subscribe to my Patreon page today, and as a patron, you'll have the option to select which tier you are interested in, with exclusive patron-only offers from early access, live stream chats, shoutouts, distant readings, and so much more. If this has piqued your interest, please follow the link in the chat or go to patreon.com and search Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn and become a patron today. Thank you for your support, darlings, and as always, dreadful dreams.